Hey,
How
Jared.
you doing, Miss? How you doing, Mr. Donald?
All right, how you?
Man, I'm doing dang near skippy. It can't be no better.
Yeah, I just got home from the track. I've been working on some lights this afternoon.
Oh, that's great. You get all your lights working?
Well, I just had to readjust some where the winds blow them around. Every once in a while, you have to do that.
I bet that's a pain in the butt, ain't it?
Yeah, just getting set up to do it. So the pain, once you get up in the air, it really don't take that long.
Well, that's cool. So for those that's listening that don't know, Mr. Donald is the owner of Hattiesburg Speedway, a fine, fine facility. They race every Friday, except for during football season, they race Saturday nights. So tell us how the Curtis Burns Memorial went.
It went pretty good. We didn't get to have it last year, just due to scheduling conflict with other racetracks and this and that, and just run out of time last year getting it in. And if we had it, that'd have been, I think, the 11th Curtis Burns last year, and then we come back this year and picked it back up. I think we had 18 or 19 cars showed up. It turned out to be a pretty good race.
Wow, that's awesome. I bet that was some of the best modified racing you will ever see.
It's generally a pretty good race. We went like 15 laps caution free after we got the race started, and you know how it is. After you have one caution, it leaves a couple more. But it turned out to be a pretty good race.
That's great because I enjoy those caution-free races. It's just so smooth. I bet the track was super fast, and I didn't really see no complaints on Facebook, so that tells me the drivers enjoyed it.
Yeah, the track started out the night really hooked up, and as the night went on, it just kind of blacked over, but it was good and smooth, and it was real racy, had multiple grooves, and Noah Daspit won it. We give him, he's our 4-time winner of the Curtis Burns, and Jay Lucenberg was running a close second to him, and he was last year, or the last Curtis Burns race winner that we had, and prior to Noah winning this last one, he was tied with 3 wins with Ben Stevens. We got some pretty good name modified drivers of past winners.
That's awesome. Well, I tell you what, I got to give a shout out to Jay Lusenberg, his dad, and Miss Julia. They came on the show last week. Super, super good people, and I'm glad they got to race because I knew they was excited about it, and that's pretty cool. He finished second because that Noah Nesbitt's hard to beat.
Yeah, Jay broke with about 5 laps to go.
Man.
And I think he had some kind of transmission problems, and he had to come out of the race. But before that, it was a pretty good race between them two.
Man,
for sure.
That's some buzzard luck right there. Well, did y'all have so what was your
Sir?
You did what now?
I said, and then we come up and had a jam up good crate race right after that, and I think it went caution free, green and checkered.
Wow, so who won that one?
Chase Cooper.
Oh, yeah, Chase Cooper, he's a good one. I've seen him race him many a times.
Yep. We had a good field of crate cars. We actually had a good field of cars in every class last Friday night. Reason we switched to Saturdays is car count's been decent on us, and can't really complain about car count on Fridays, but the fan count's been awful low last couple of Fridays since football started. So we're switching over to Saturday starting this weekend.
I tell you what, I like football. I like high school football. I could care less about college or NFL. I love high school football, but I'm always going to pick racing over football. Racing is just 1,000 times better, in my opinion.
Well, you got a lot of race fans that like racing, but then they got kids that play football, grandkids, nephews, and cousins and stuff like that they got to go support. And, football this year started about three weeks earlier than it has any other time ever, and it just caught us off guard.
Oh, that sucks. Well, I tell you what, one thing
early and earlier every year.
And one thing I have noticed that I like about Hattiesburg is the roasted corn. And then another thing I want to hit on also, like you just said, school starts earlier and earlier. I think that's so stupid in my opinion because, like, when I was growing up, like, I'm 38, and I can remember when school was starting after my birthday, which is August 19th. And then it started getting earlier and earlier, started on my birthday, the 19th. I'm like, daggum. And now where I'm at, it's like you might as well have year-round school if you're just gonna keep going up and up like that. That's nuts.
We used to, when I was in school, we never went back to school till after Labor Day.
Wow,
we never started school after Labor Day, and used to when we first started racing, our race season ended Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend would be our last race of the season. And it would always be a big championship race on Labor Day weekend, and that would be the end of the season. We don't have race seasons no more. Used to, race season would start at the end of March, 1st of April, and run to the Labor Day, and we'd shut it down. Then everybody go deer hunting and, get prepared for Thanksgiving and the holidays, and then, you had some downtime, but there ain't no downtime in racing no more, and in my opinion, that's kind of the downfall for racing is we don't have no downtime no more for people to regroup.
Yeah, and I'm gonna eventually get me a car, get me a little Stinger car is what I'm gonna eventually get. But I like racing. Like, I don't care how cold it is, I'm gonna be at the racetrack, but I also see your point, how it kills it because you got to have time to rebuild your car if you got damage to it, get it ready for next season, freshen it up, whatever you got to do. And a lot of that stuff takes time, especially if you're a driver that doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a big budget, so you have to kind of spread it out.
But it's not just that. You burn everybody out, If you know you're going to start racing at the end of March, 1st of April, and you know it's going to end in first weekend of September, you're going to race all you can in a few months because once it's over, it's over. And
right.
Once we was over in our Labor Day weekend, the next thing we had to look forward to was we'd all gear up and get ready to go to the Fall Classic, and sometimes we'd be through racing a full month and a half before the Fall Classic, and it was just a big shindig to go to the Fall Classic every year, after being out for that long, and that made the Fall Classic that much more special.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I go to the Fall Classic, and that's a big, big race.
Yep. But now everybody races right up to the Fall Classic, right on through the Fall Classic, right on into the first of the year. Like I said, there's no downtime.
It really ain't when you think about it. So I know you're a racer, so I want to ask you. So since this is a safety podcast, what is your biggest things in safety that you like to preach on safety? Your biggest things you wish drivers would do or whatever?
Just pay attention to their surroundings, and I'm real big on not as much as performance as I am safety. I think the chassis being built for safety becomes before performance, and people get that mixed up.
Exactly, that's the way it should be.
people cut corners on safety just to get a little more speed. But when you're laid up in a hospital for something, you can't go back and man, I wish I'd have did it a little different. But
that's right.
But people are willing to take that chance sometimes.
And it's like the Bible says, you're not promised tomorrow. And you know, like I was talking about earlier with the fuel arrestor, like you wouldn't believe, and I'm sure you hear a lot of excuses, but like I hear so many excuses on safety products, like gloves, for instance. Well, I can't pull my tear offs. It's like, no, you can redneck rig away. I've like my buddy Daniel Sullivan, his dad was telling me, Tim Sullivan was telling me the way he does his tear offs was because he's a dirt driver, and he takes his gloves and folds that tear off enough to where he can grip it with that glove and pulls it off, no problem. But if you don't wear gloves, well, if you get burned, well, don't come back and tell me, well, you was right. Well, too late now. And then like the fuel arrestor with fuel safety, one of the things I've heard this a bunch of times, well, if you'd make it mandatory, I'd buy it. I said, well, why should something that would save your life be mandatory before you buy it? That sounds stupid to me.
Yeah. Well, when I first got the track, I had racing gloves, window nets, and neck braces, all mandatory. And I had some racers say, I ain't wearing gloves, I ain't doing this. So I said, fine. Then I highly recommend. And, you know, and you choose your own safety on it. But, you know, I never liked wearing gloves when I first was forced to wear them, but I got used to them. Then after I got used to them, I felt naked without gloves.
Yeah.
Same difference with the neck brace. When we first was forced to wear neck braces, I couldn't stand it. And then if I went out without a neck brace on, I felt naked without it. It's just what you get used to.
Yeah. And I mean, people will come up any excuse under the sun to cut corners and not be safe. I want to win the race, or I'm running this and this in points. It's like, look, points ain't going to do you a bit of good in the hospital or 6 feet under the ground.
Yeah. Well, it's like when I first got the track, you know, a Pure Street class, the weight rule when I got the track and adapted the rules that I had, cars had to weigh 3,400 pounds. So the first thing I did is I cut that weight limit down to 3,000. And I says, take the money you're going to save on buying lead and spend it on safety equipment. And I couldn't get other tracks on board with me to lower the weight limit, so I had to move the weight limit back up. But lead at a minimum of $2 a pound, if you cut a guy 300 pounds, that's a pretty good bit of freed up money that they can buy something safety wise.
Exactly, I agree with that. I am 100% on board with that.
Yeah, because some of these cars are toting 500-600 pounds. They don't need to be toting that much at both on lead.
Yeah, that's a lot of lead. I mean, yeah, and like I hear all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't know. I think gloves should be mandatory. All the safety stuff should be mandatory. It's sad that you have to make something mandatory before somebody would buy it. I mean, that just tells you how much people care about their life or care about their family or safety, whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, it's just like one time, and this has been since I got ran over at the track, you know, and I didn't plan on getting run over. I come home from working out of town. I wasn't at the racetrack 45 minutes before I got run over, and that's the last thing I thought was going to happen. And it changed my life from that moment on. It altered my life from that instant. And
it gave you a different perspective.
Well, since then, I don't like no more personnel on the racetrack than has to be. And I don't like a driver on a racetrack at all for no reason. I don't like a driver on the racetrack whatsoever, no matter what their excuse is, other than a car on fire. There's no reason their feet should hit the ground. And, but I had a racer come up to me one night. We was packing the track, and the cars wasn't rolling it in good. And a driver rolled up to me and hollered at me, said, "Hey, you're going to have to get out here and force us down in the mud if you want this track rolled in." And I told him, I said, "You're all grown men. I ain't sending no personnel out there to get run over. We're going to race on the track that y'all prep for yourself. It's y'all's racetrack to race on."
Uh-huh.
But that's the kind of mentality a racer has. You know, they come up there and tell me I got to get out there and force them down in the mud. You know.
Yeah, isn't that stupid? Telling you, I mean, you're the owner. That's like telling our crazy president that you know, telling him what to do.
Yeah, but that's not the point. You know, they should have enough common sense to see what needs to be done. They're all supposed to be grown men and racers. They should know what to do.
Because I'm not a big fan of. I hate one groove racing, and I can't stand it when I see drivers. All they race is the bottom. They don't move to the top. They don't. You know, I mean, I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and drivers, they need to learn to work the whole, you know, racetrack, like you said, that way they can have multiple grooves instead of just one.
Well, I try to roll the track in myself for the most part because I don't like the cars out there in the sloppy mud. So usually when I bring the cars out anyway, the track's about 85% rolled in, if not 90% rolled in, before I bring the cars out anyway, just to slick it off for the most part. So, because I like to do majority of the track packing myself. So,
That's cool. That's cool.
Because I want a multi-groove track.
That's great. Well, I tell you what, the times I've been to Hattiesburg, I've enjoyed it. I love going. I just wish I didn't live 2 hours away. And I love Ron Southern. Ron Southern he is awesome. He has done a lot for me. And then I thank the world of him and you and Ernie and everybody up there. I just love going to Hattiesburg.
Well, I appreciate that. I think we operate our racetrack with probably less personnel than any racetrack around. It ain't by choice. It's just all the personnel we can round up. It's difficult. Every week we got, you know, 1, 2 to even 3 people still on a weekly deal don't show up, and we just have to work around it. But it's hard to get help, you know.
So this is what we'll do. So anybody that's listening to the show, one, I want you to share the show and tell your friends about it, because the more people listening, the better, because I don't know who's listening and who ain't. I'll see the stats later. But when you share this show, also talk with people and find people that want to work at Hattiesburg Speedway. Great place to work, Mr. Donald. He needs workers to help at that racetrack because it's not easy. If you want to get a race in in a timely manner, have a good track, have good food, everything, then find somebody that will want to work at the racetrack and message Mr. Donald or call him, and he'll get you set up with a position.
Yeah, it's just one of them things, you know. This person gets sick one night, and then another person, their kid gets sick. It ain't nothing, you know, most times it's out of people's control, but you know, we just generally work through it.
Well, that's cool. So is there any sponsors you want to thank before I go on to the next guest?
That's easy. Hattiesburg Speedway.
Oh, okay. Well, look, if anybody wants to sponsor Hattiesburg Speedway, you get with Mr. Donald, because that is the perfect advertising opportunity, because you got thousands of fans that'll see your business name all over the racetrack and all over their 2 Facebook pages. So hit up Mr. Donald and sponsor that racetrack. We'd love to see a local business sponsor him.
With that being said, next weekend we got our eighth annual Dixie 50 with the Pierce Street.
Now that's a race of races.
Which is also, we included it to be our Mitchell Williams Memorial Race. And with that being said, I'm going to do an open practice on Friday night. And I'm not accustomed to doing a practice, but we are going to do an open practice Friday night for anybody that wants to come practice. And
that's great.
I'm putting together something special for the Pierce Street guys. That's going to be real rewarding to them, and I'm going to be putting a post out maybe tonight or early in the morning what that's going to be about. But trust me, it's going to be big.
Well, that's great.
It's going to be rewarding to come practice.
That's awesome. Well, y'all be sure and tune in. Follow Mr. Donald on Facebook. Go and watch his post and watch Hattiesburg Speedway's post, and he'll have it on there because he's pretty good about posting on social media. Because that is one thing I'm big on is posting on social media. Because the thing that bothers me, and I see it all the time, and I ain't gonna name no tracks because I don't talk bad about tracks, but I see a lack of social media posts on your Facebook pages, and that's where all your fans are gonna be watching. If you don't post on social media, if you don't engage with your fans, if you don't keep them updated, because Facebook's got a lot of tools that people ain't using, and it's just bad advertising for your racetrack when you don't keep your pages updated. And I see a lot of stuff, and I'm like, really? That's crazy. But if you see Hattiesburg, it's either Ron, or Mr. Parker there advertising, and they do a good job keeping up with advertising and promoting their races. And
yeah, with that being said, Jared, it's really important. I hate to keep asking people to help us share posts, but with the way Facebook is now, if people don't help us share posts, there's not that many people sees it because Facebook has got us limited to a certain amount of people, and the only way we can get stuff out to where more public people can see it, we need other people to help us share because they got everybody's circle a lot smaller than it used to be. So
exactly, that is exactly the truth right there.
So for people to see advertisement or anything to do with a racetrack or anything, when a racetrack posts something, help them share it because we need that help to get it out even further because we're limited to how many people can see what we posted. Facebook's making it harder and harder to advertise.
So one more quick thing to mention about that is it doesn't cost anything to share. It's super easy, and another good tool that people either don't know about or just don't use, whatever. When you share the post, not only don't just click share and just share a blank post. When you share it, put you a caption on it and say, hey, come to Hattiesburg Speedway. And also it gives you an option where you click a little blue people icon, and you click it, and you can go through the line and tag people in it. Tag them ABC order if you want to. I usually tag 100 people a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And when you share it, then they'll get the notification they was tagged in this, and they'll say, oh, that's Hattiesburg Speedway. Well, I need to go there. Let me tell so-and-so. Because word of mouth and social media is a huge tool that can be used for racing.
Yeah, because I've went through my, Messenger group before, yes. And I've shared it to hundreds of people just on my Messenger, whether they're racing people or not. You'll be surprised at the people that come to the races that ordinarily is not race fans, just because.
And see, that's a good idea too. That's a good idea too. Send it in Messenger because it shows you in Messenger whether somebody reads your message or not, and you'll send it, and it'll do a little pop noise when they see it, and show their picture that they've seen it, and say, there you go, there's another advertisement for a racetrack. And so But I thank you for coming on. If you want to still listen or if you want to chime in with the next guest, but I got Dave Chisholm coming up next. And I thank you for coming on, Mr. Donald.
All right. And I just want to, before we get off, invite as many Pierce Street factory stock guys that would like to come run with us. And like I said, keep an eye out what we're going to do for that Friday night, because your Pierce Street guys are going to want to be a part of this.